Wow, the Shark Boy and Lava Girl animated remake isn't something I thought anyone needed, but we totally did. Yep, I said it.
Okay, now you die.
Elemental is a movie that so far has become known for having the worst opening weekend in theaters for a Pixar film. And in this video, I hope to explain why. I'm Evan Barth, and you're watching the new Team DissTube movies. Be sure to like, subscribe, whatever, let's get into it. To start with, this is one of those movies that attracts the hateful crowd of anti-SJW YouTube. In other words, a crowd of total absolute losers who scream whenever something is vaguely progressive at least. And why is that? Well, it's because the film is largely based around interracial dating, which is something those people just pee themselves when they see. To be honest, whenever these conversations come up, I feel terrible for the marginalized groups that don't get enough representation as is, and are now getting crapped on for having bare minimum representation. It's the same thing with, like, the Velma show on HBO Max. They're doing it now with the Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem movie that's coming out soon. They, of course, did this with the Peter Pan and Wendy movie. They're doing it with the live-action Little Mermaid, which I refuse to watch. It's just a very frustrating discourse, and I hate it. It's just lazy criticism because people are so used to being spoon-fed the same people always being represented that whenever they see someone else get in the spotlight, they're just like... I mean, imagine having a movie that's supposed to be exactly for people like you, and then hearing hundreds of tighty-whities online screaming about how your representation is too political. Ah, yes, because there's absolutely nothing political about movies where rebel factions face against not-so-subtle imperialist metaphors. Until they have a woman or a black guy as a hero, that is. So, yeah, this discourse is stupid, and if you genuinely are concerned with media being too woke, like our little idiotic friend Geeks and Gamers from the Mario video, you're not watching it correctly. That and you're stupid.
You're not affiliated with me.
So, another thing I want to get off my chest is that we all know how cliche it is to see another star-crossed lovers story after seeing it so many times before. Especially us, because we have already criticized many of those movies in the past, like Romeo and Juliet, Sealed with a Kiss, and Alpha and Omega, and Birds of Paradise. And because of this, most people take one look at the first trailer and go,
"Wow, that was shit."
Needless to say, it didn't go well. But then more trailers came out, and I personally thought that this actually looked really cool. I loved the animation and the character designs. I thought it was going to be great. Unfortunately, most other people didn't see it that way. Instead, most of their reactions were, this may be alright, and that was generally the consensus, and even that may have been too nice. Not many people were particularly excited to see it, but as time went on, well, that so far has been the case at the box office too. But now that I've actually seen it all the way through myself, I get to ask, does Elemental deserve this weak theatrical opening? Well, watch the rest of the video to find out for yourself. Going back to my point about the star-crossed lovers tropes, honestly, I do hate when stories are too cliche as much as the next guy. However, I am willing to accept it as long as the story itself makes good use of the tropes and cliches. Does Elemental do this? And to that I say, yes, actually. The romance between Ember and Wade starts off feeling like it could go down the path of being forced, like some other movie we've already watched. But it actually does let their romance flow naturally from that point on, to the point where even though you know what's going to happen in the end before it happens, you still feel for them more than enough to root for them and want them to get together. They do, by the way. I really hope that doesn't count as a spoiler, but yeah, it happens. Anyway, it mainly works because while the situation they originally met felt a little forced at first, almost every other situation they meet in is of their own choice, changing each other naturally as they start to bond more, allowing their relationship to feel real. Definitely more real than two wolves that look like shampoo models accidentally getting shipped out of Idaho and are forced to work together. Am I right? So yeah, unlike some people, I don't think simplicity equals bad. But does this movie have any other themes worth exploring? Oh boy, I sure do hope that romance section warmed up your heart, because now I'm about to sink it. So, within the first 5 minutes of the film, they introduce us to Ember's dad, Bernie, and his wife, Blaze. These aren't their original names, mind you. These were the names given to them by the Element City that they moved to after a storm destroyed their hometown. That's right, on top of mixed-race dating, we've also got a clear case of immigration, which is fitting because the director of this movie has gone on to say that this was meant to be like a personification of their struggles as an immigrant. In the movie, most of the other elements seem to mix pretty well together as they've all integrated into the city long before the events of the story. But where's Fire? Oh, that's right. Bernie and Blaze are actually the first Fire family to integrate into Element City. Worse even still, we see them constantly struggling to find themselves a new home, as most people just kick them out immediately. When I was watching this, I was getting some serious American Tail vibes from the racism and immigration allegories we see. And what's more is that the film goes a couple steps further to address some other issues. For example, when Ember has gotten old enough to run her father's shop he worked his whole life to set up, we see that while she wants to make him happy, that doesn't go as well as she hoped for. Mostly because the customers can be misunderstanding at best and at worst complete jerks who think they're entitled to whatever they want because of the whole "the customer is always right" mantra. Based Pixar, teaching the cruelties of capitalism to young audiences everywhere. No wonder Disney screwed this movie over. They're being silenced for speaking the truth. But what makes this movie even more interesting is that it uses this idea into talking about peer pressure. Or rather, just pressure in general. You see, as she continues to freak out and lose her temper constantly, we actually see that deep down, Ember doesn't want to run her father's shop, despite claiming that she wants to, and is only doing what she believes will make him proud. But of course, she also thinks admitting this, plus the fact that she technically started the pipe leakage that kicks the main plot forward, will make her into a bad daughter. In this way, the dad kind of reminds me of Ming from Turning Red and Alma from Encanto, as all three of them are like authoritative family members who weren't necessarily bad people, but the impact of their actions turned them into the antagonists of their own stories, despite having the best intentions. Although you could argue that Alma and Ming were clearly more antagonistic in their roles, Bernie kind of feels like burdening on accident, because spoilers, at the end of the movie where Ember finally admits it to his face, he like immediately accepts it and still loves her. I know many people are sick of the generational trauma in some of these Disney and Pixar films, but I believe this movie portrays it in a realistic way without having any real bad guy. This is how you make a villainless movie. Take notes, Raya and the Last Dragon. We'll get to that soon enough. Anyway, not every story needs a bad guy to be the source of the story's main conflict, and I think this is one of them. Although Disney could still use a traditional villain as of late. I mean, I know I've been bashing Disney for basically the whole year so far, but I only do it so hard because I genuinely care about the studio and want to see them improve so we can get movies like the best of the past. Truth be told, I'm actually kind of excited for that Wish movie, with how they've hyped it up to be like a return to like a new Disney Renaissance. I'm gonna be real, I'm torn between it because I want it to be good so I can believe in Disney again, but also with how much they've boasted about it, I'd love to completely see them just lose it if it turns out to be bad. So it's a win-win for me. Overall, if you don't like this movie, then yeah, I mean, I can see why. It just, on its surface level, it seems like just a generic love knows no boundary story that we've been spoon-fed many times before. And also, fire plus water is a pretty generic idea for a story about living elements, plus the fact that Pixar is known for basically taking things that are inanimate and then making them animate does kind of put a stigma on this movie, but I still think that the movie is definitely worth it, if nothing else, for the animation, and the simplistic story, while simple, is still very emotional and impactful, with a hint of realism as well, in my opinion. So yeah, like, I can understand why people aren't giving it more of a chance, but I still think you should at least watch it before coming to your conclusion. The animation is absolutely gorgeous, the characters and their designs are really fun and engaging, the story is simple but effective, and the music is pretty unique too. It sounds like, I didn't talk much about those elements, because, well, what else can I say? They're just really good. I know it's not the most nuanced romantic movie ever, and everyone knows how it's going to end, but that's the magic of Pixar. At their best, they can make you feel for things that aren't even real, much less sentient. They can traverse the mighty walls of doubt that block off an impressionable viewer's heart from genuine connection, and in forming one, create something truly beautiful. And that is why Elemental truly belongs with the greats of the studio. Thanks for watching. Now it's time to go complain about Disney for the billionth time.
kanji, today's special is... to
Die!